Imagine for a moment that you are the Emperor of Rome in the 2nd century AD. You have absolute power over millions of people, control vast territories stretching from Britain to North Africa, and your decisions can change the course of history. Now imagine that, amidst all these overwhelming responsibilities, you find time to reflect deeply on life, write intimate thoughts about how to be a better person, and develop a philosophy that still transforms lives today. Nearly 2,000 years later, this is not a fictional story. This is the real story of Marcus Aurelius, the last of Rome's 5 good emperors, a man who taught us that we can all and should behave like emperors of our own worlds. Marcus Aurelius was not born expecting to be emperor. In fact, he was a young scholar, passionate about Stoic philosophy, who preferred books to battles, reflection to military conquests. But when fate placed him on the throne of the Roman Empire in 161 AD, he did not flee from responsibility. Instead, he did something extraordinary. He decided to govern not just an empire, but primarily himself. During his military campaigns on the empire's frontiers, especially during the wars against Germanic tribes, Marcus Aurelius developed the habit of writing personal reflections. These writings, which he never intended to publish, were exercises in mental and spiritual self-discipline. He simply called them to himself. Today we know this work as Meditations, one of the most influential texts in Western philosophy. What makes Marcus Aurelius so fascinating is not just the fact that he was a powerful emperor, but how he used that power. He understood something that most people never comprehend, that true power does not come from controlling others, but from mastering oneself. And this is exactly what he teaches us about becoming emperors of our own worlds. You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength. This phrase from Marcus Aurelius perfectly summarizes his central philosophy, the distinction between what is under our control and what is not. Think about how many times you worry about things that are completely beyond your reach. Traffic, weather, other people's actions, world events, or even past events that have already happened. Marcus Aurelius realized that wasting mental energy on these things is not only useless, but also destructive to our well-being. Instead, he proposed that we focus all our attention and energy on the things we can actually control: our thoughts, our reactions, our choices, our values, and our actions. This simple shift in perspective is revolutionary because it transforms you from a victim of circumstances into an active agent of your own life. When you behave like the emperor of your world, you are not trying to control everything around you. You are exercising absolute control over the only territory that truly belongs to you, your own mind and your own actions. It's a much more real and sustainable power than any form of external control. Marcus Aurelius knew that governing an empire began with governing himself. He developed specific practices to maintain control over his thoughts and emotions, practices that anyone can adopt today. The practice of morning reflection. Every day, Marcus Aurelius began with reflections on how he should behave. He reminded himself of his values, mentally prepared for the day's challenges, and set clear intentions about how he wanted to act. This practice of starting the day with purpose and mental clarity is something anyone can implement. The evening examination. At the end of each day, he reviewed his actions, thoughts, and reactions. Not to punish himself for mistakes, but to learn from them. He asked himself, how did I behave today? What can I do better tomorrow? Where did I allow negative emotions to take control of me? The practice of presence. Marcus Aurelius constantly emphasized the importance of being completely present in the current moment. He wrote, "Confine yourself to the present." He understood that real power only exists in the present moment. It is only here and now that we can truly act and make choices. The cultivation of virtue. For Marcus Aurelius, being emperor of your own world meant prioritizing virtues above all else: wisdom, justice, courage, and temperance. These were not abstract ideas for him, but practical qualities that guided his daily decisions. One of Marcus Aurelius' most powerful lessons is his famous phrase, "The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way." This revolutionary perspective completely transforms how we deal with life's challenges. Instead of seeing obstacles as problems that prevent us from achieving our goals, Marcus Aurelius teaches us to see them as opportunities for growth, learning, and character development. Each difficulty becomes a chance to practice virtues like patience, perseverance, creativity, and courage. Imagine how your life would change if you adopted this perspective. Lost your job? It's an opportunity to discover a career more aligned with your values. Facing a difficult relationship, it's a chance to develop communication and empathy skills. Dealing with illness, it's an opportunity to strengthen your resilience and appreciate life more deeply. This is not a naively optimistic view. It is a practical and powerful strategy for maintaining control over your response to life's circumstances, no matter how challenging they may be. Marcus Aurelius taught that our experience of life is determined not by events themselves, but by how we interpret these events. He wrote, "Very little is needed to make a happy life. It is all within yourself, in your way of thinking." This lesson is especially relevant today when we are constantly bombarded with information, opinions, and external stimuli. As emperors of our own worlds, we need to develop the discipline of consciously choosing how to interpret and respond to these external influences. For example, if someone unfairly criticizes you at work, you can choose to interpret this as a personal attack that ruins your day, or you can see it as an opportunity to practice patience and maybe even learn something useful about how you are perceived by others. The situation is the same, but your experience of it is completely different based on how you choose to interpret it. Marcus Aurelius constantly practiced this discipline of perception, always looking for ways to reinterpret negative situations in ways that preserved his peace of mind and helped him grow as a person. One of the deepest themes in Marcus Aurelius's reflections is the impermanence of all things. He wrote extensively about how everything in life is temporary: our successes, our failures, our pain, our joy, even our own lives. At first glance, this may seem depressing, but Marcus Aurelius saw impermanence as profoundly liberating. If everything is temporary, then we don't need to desperately cling to good things or despair completely over bad things. We can appreciate positive moments without fear of losing them, and endure difficult moments knowing they too will pass. This perspective frees us from what Buddhists call the suffering of attachment, the suffering that comes from trying to permanently grasp things that are naturally impermanent. When you behave as the emperor of your world, you govern with the wisdom of impermanence, making decisions based on lasting values rather than temporary circumstances. Marcus Aurelius understood that being emperor of your own world means accepting total responsibility for your life, not for the events that happen to you, but for how you respond to those events. This total personal responsibility is simultaneously frightening and incredibly empowering. It is frightening because it means you can no longer blame other people, external circumstances, or bad luck for your unhappiness or lack of progress in life. But it is empowering because it means you have the power to change your experience of life at any moment simply by changing how you think and act. This is not a responsibility imposed on us from outside. It is a responsibility we choose to accept because we recognize it is the only way to have real control over our lives. When you accept total responsibility for your reactions and choices, you become truly free. So how do you begin to behave like the emperor of your own world? Marcus Aurelius offers us a practical roadmap. Start each day with intention. Before checking your phone, reading the news, or diving into the day's demands, dedicate a few minutes to establishing your intentions. What kind of person do you want to be today? How do you want to respond to challenges that may arise? What values do you want to prioritize? Practice detachment. Throughout the day, when you find yourself reacting emotionally to something, practice taking a mental step back. Ask yourself, is this under my control or not? How do I want to respond to this? What would be the most virtuous response? See every challenge as training. Instead of resenting life's difficulties, see them as soul exercises. Every difficult person is an opportunity to practice patience. Every setback is a chance to develop resilience. Every temptation is an opportunity to strengthen your self-discipline. End each day with reflection. Before sleep, briefly review the day. What went well? Where did you lose control of your reactions? What can you do better tomorrow? This is not a session of harsh self-criticism, but rather a gentle exercise in continuous learning. One of Marcus Aurelius's most powerful practices was regularly meditating on mortality. He frequently reminded himself that his life, like all lives, was limited and precious. This practice, which he called memento mori, remember that you will die, was not morbid or depressing. It was deeply motivating and clarifying. When you truly accept that your life is limited, your priorities become crystal clear. You stop wasting time on trivial concerns, toxic relationships, or activities that add no real value to your life. You become more present, more grateful, and more focused on what truly matters. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "It is not death that a man should fear, but never beginning to live." When you behave as the emperor of your world, you live each day with the urgency and purpose that come from recognizing the preciousness of time. The journey of becoming the emperor of your own world is not easy. It requires constant practice, patience with yourself, and the humility to recognize that personal growth is a lifelong process. Marcus Aurelius reminds us that the art of living is more like wrestling than dancing. It requires strength, flexibility, and the ability to respond quickly to unexpected situations. But the benefits of this transformation are extraordinary. When you master the art of governing yourself, you experience real freedom. The freedom of not being enslaved by your emotions, impulses, or external circumstances. Inner peace, the tranquility that comes from knowing you are doing the best you can with what you have. Clear purpose. Clarity about what really matters in life and how you want to contribute to the world. Resilience. The ability to recover quickly from setbacks and continue progressing toward your goals. Better relationships. When you are not constantly reacting emotionally, you can respond to others with more wisdom, patience, and compassion. Marcus Aurelius regularly practiced what Stoics call premeditatio malorum, imagining loss or setbacks before they occur. This might sound pessimistic, but it actually serves multiple positive purposes. First, it helps you appreciate what you currently have. When you imagine losing your health, relationships, or opportunities, you naturally feel more grateful for them while they're present. Second, it mentally prepares you for challenges. When difficulties arise, you're not completely blindsided because you've already considered how you might respond. Third, it reduces anxiety about the future. Often our fears are worse than reality. And when we consciously examine what we're afraid of, we often realize we could handle it better than we initially thought. Marcus Aurelius would imagine losing his position, his wealth, even his life, not to torture himself, but to maintain perspective and strengthen his mental resilience. Being the emperor of your own world doesn't mean becoming selfish or isolated. In fact, Marcus Aurelius emphasized that humans are inherently social creatures who fulfill their nature through service to others. However, this service comes from a place of choice and strength rather than obligation or weakness. When you govern yourself effectively, you become a stabilizing force for others. Your calm presence in chaotic situations, your thoughtful responses to provocations, and your consistent adherence to your values all serve as examples that inspire others to elevate their own behavior. Marcus Aurelius wrote extensively about dealing with difficult people. His approach was not to try to change them or avoid them entirely, but to maintain his own virtue regardless of their behavior. He saw challenging people as opportunities to practice patience, understanding, and forgiveness. The challenges Marcus Aurelius faced as emperor, political intrigue, military threats, personal losses, public criticism, may seem different from modern challenges, but the underlying human experiences remain remarkably similar. We still deal with stress, disappointment, difficult people, and uncertainty about the future. The beauty of Marcus Aurelius's philosophy is its timeless applicability. Whether you're dealing with a demanding boss, financial pressure, relationship problems, or health issues, the same fundamental principles apply. Focus on what you can control. Accept what you cannot control. Respond to challenges with virtue. Learn from every experience. Remember that everything is temporary. Take responsibility for your reactions. When you truly embody the role of emperor in your own world, the effects extend far beyond your personal experience. Your children learn by watching how you handle stress and setbacks. Your colleagues are influenced by your calm professionalism under pressure. Your friends are inspired by your resilience and positive attitude. Marcus Aurelius understood that leadership by example is the most powerful form of influence. He didn't just tell people how to behave, he demonstrated it through his own actions, even in the most challenging circumstances. One of the most profound insights from Marcus Aurelius is the paradox that by focusing only on what we can control, we actually become more effective at influencing the things we cannot directly control. When you stop trying to force outcomes and instead focus on bringing your best self to every situation, you often achieve better results than if you had tried to manipulate circumstances directly. This happens because people respond positively to authentic, principled behavior. When you're not desperate for specific outcomes, you can think more clearly, communicate more effectively, and make better decisions. Marcus Aurelius ruled the Roman Empire for 19 years, facing plagues, wars, political betrayals, and devastating personal losses, including the deaths of several of his children. Through all of this, he maintained his composure, his principles, and his humanity. He was not perfect. His own meditations reveal his ongoing struggles with anger, frustration, and doubt. But he continued striving to be better. Marcus Aurelius's true legacy is not the military campaigns he won or the territories he expanded. His lasting legacy is the demonstration that it is possible to maintain control over oneself and live according to one's highest values, regardless of external circumstances. When you choose to behave as the emperor of your own world, you are not just improving your own life, you are becoming an example for others. Your calm in the midst of chaos, your kindness in the face of rudeness, your perseverance through difficulties, all of this inspires and elevates the people around you. Marcus Aurelius taught us that each of us has an empire to govern, the empire of our own mind, heart, and actions. This is the only territory over which we have true and absolute control, but it is also the territory that determines our experience of all of life. When you choose to behave as the emperor of your world, you are not isolating yourself from others or becoming selfish. On the contrary, you are becoming the best version of yourself so that you can contribute more effectively to your family, community, and society. You are choosing to be a force of stability, wisdom, and compassion in a world that frequently lacks these qualities. Marcus Aurelius' message echoes across the centuries because it speaks to something fundamental in the human experience: our desire to live with dignity, purpose, and authenticity, regardless of the circumstances we face. His example shows us that it is possible to maintain our humanity and our highest values, even when facing the greatest challenges. Today, when you wake up tomorrow, remember, you are the emperor of your own world. The kingdom may be small compared to the Roman Empire, but the power you have within that kingdom is absolute. Use it wisely. Use it with compassion. Use it to become the person you most admire. As Marcus Aurelius wrote in his personal reflections, be like the rocky headland on which the waves constantly beat. It stands firm, and round it the seething waters are laid to rest. This is the promise of living as the emperor of your own world, not that you will control the waves, but that you will remain steady, calm, and centered, no matter how stormy they become. The empire awaits your rule. The crown of self-discipline and wisdom is at your disposal. The only question that remains is, will you choose to wear it?